After Muhammad Ali, many observers in the world of professional boxing consider Floyd "Money" Mayweather to be the greatest boxer on the face of the earth. Mayweather has had a total of 50 fights and has somehow managed to win them all. And 27 of those fights were won by knockout. So stay tuned and don't go away, because today we're looking at how Floyd Mayweather has shared his advice to young boxers, plus other boxing-related news.
No one is perfect. Every day we strive to be perfectionists, but no one is perfect. I make mistakes. You know, I've said things that I shouldn't have said when I was younger. I've done things that I shouldn't have done when I was younger. I'm not perfect, but we live and we learn. And that's a part of growing.
First up, what sage advice does Mayweather offer to young boxers? Let's take a look. Floyd's now officially retired, and the bulk of his time is spent focusing on youth mentorship. And despite the fact that he is retired, Mayweather remains the wealthiest boxer alive. However, his advice to young fighters has nothing to do with chasing massive cash fortunes. In a recent on-camera interview, Mayweather gave the following advice to aspiring young boxers. It all started back in October of 2021, when Mayweather spoke to members of the media during the Gervonta Davis-Isaac Cruz post-fight press conference. When asked about the most important advice he could possibly give young boxers, Mayweather repeatedly stressed the importance of young fighters keeping their health and well-being a top priority. Mayweather said, "The name of the game is boxing. The name of the game is not slugging, because when the fight game is over, boxing is all over. And you're hanging it up like me. You still want to be able to have your faculties. You still want to be able to have your brain," he insisted. Money, as many fans call him, went on to add, "That's more important than anything. F the money. Your health is more important than anything. The name of the game is hit and not get hit. And I was the best at doing it, and I'm going to continue to teach these young fighters. The name of the game is to dish it out and not take it. And then when your career's over, take your money, invest it right so you can have something. These people don't give an F about us. And y'all gonna know that once your career is over."
Speak my mind. Speak from the heart. You know, I don't hate or dislike anyone. I want to go out there, you know, and just do what I have to do inside that square circle. Choose a tremendous team on the outside that's going to help me take things to the next level, and that's what I did.
Next up, how did Mayweather drive his point home? Let's have a look. To drive his point home, Mayweather spoke of the late great Muhammad Ali as a shining example. In his prime, Ali was at the top of the boxing world and was considered to be the most elite fighter of the day. However, in retirement, Ali developed Parkinson's disease, and he was plagued by the ailment throughout his golden years until his death. Mayweather said, "When Muhammad Ali was in the fight game, he was in the top of his game. He was kicking their butt, and they hated him. When he could barely walk and talk, that's when they loved him. Money's now 44 years old and officially retired after he fought and beat UFC bad boy and loudmouth Conor McGregor back in 2017. The win over McGregor gave Money his 50th victory inside the boxing ring. After the McGregor fight, though, Mayweather did have 2 exhibition matches, but as we know, exhibition matches are essentially light sparring sessions compared to official bouts. Recently, Gervonta Davis spoke about Mayweather coaching him for the fight against Cruz. Davis had this to say, "Floyd's been there coaching me through what comes with having my first pay-per-view main event fight. There's a lot of pressure on me, and you have to live up to fighting on pay-per-view so you can fight on pay-per-view again. When I'm down or anything like that, he's able to push me because he's been there before. There are things that only Floyd can tell me about because he has that experience." Stay tuned and don't go away, because we've got some of the latest news from the world of pro boxing coming your way. Up next, what is happening with Frank Gore and Jake Paul? Let's dig a little deeper and find out.
I'm taking it serious. You know, I want to look good, I want to win, and I want people to, when I'm done, be like, man, you know, whatever you put your mind to, you can do it.
Former NFL running back Frank Gore hopes to make the transition from the world of professional football to the world of pro boxing, and he appears to have found inspiration in YouTube star turned pro boxer Jake Paul. The first time Gore saw Jake Paul fight was back in January of 2020 during Paul's pro boxing debut, which resulted in a first-round knockout of fellow YouTube star Anderson Gibb. In a recent interview, Gore explained that at the time he thought he could beat Paul, and what many probably don't realize is that Gore has been training as a pro boxer for over 10 years. But as Gore continued to watch Paul's performance in the ring, he was blown away by the rapid pace of Paul's improvements. Gore witnessed Paul knock out NBA veteran Nate Robinson back in November of 2020 and saw Paul KO MMA champ Ben Askren. Gore then watched as Paul defeated ex-UFC champ Tyron Woodley in a split decision. And most recently, however, Gore was himself featured on the undercard of the Paul vs. Woodley rematch and faced off against NBA All-Star Darren Williams. Williams ended up defeating Gore via split decision, but afterward, Gore was able to watch Paul knock out Woodley Woodley in the 6th round. Gore had this to say, "Every time he stepped in the ring, bro, he got better and better. They say YouTuber to now, the guys he beat, you've got to take your hat off to this man. I respect what he's done." Next up, it's clear that Gore's impressed, but how do Jake Paul's haters feel? Let's find out. Paul has accumulated many haters in recent years because many still see him as nothing more than a flash-in-the-pan YouTube sensation and nothing more. Many still refuse to see him as a legitimate boxer, but in 2021, many of those haters are growing silent and are realizing that Paul, who's still only 24, does have what it takes to be a pro boxer. Over the past year, Paul has won 3 times with 2 knockouts, and incredibly, he's now considered to be one of the most bankable pay-per-view fighters in combat sports. After knocking Woodley out cold, Paul spoke to reporters and said, "Look at what I just did. Look at the year I just had. Unprecedented. One of the most valuable boxers in this sport. 4 fights, 4 massive pay-per-views in 13 months. I've knocked out every single person that I fought." In addition to kicking butt in the ring, Paul is also a businessman and has decided to enter the fight promotions business. Paul and his partner/advisor, Narcisa Bidarian, founded the company Most Valuable Promotions Incorporated and even promoted both Woodley fights. Just like Floyd Money Mayweather, the biggest box office draw in the history of boxing, Paul is choosing to promote himself. A smart move. Up next, what's it like to be both a boxing star and a promoter? You're about to find out. If you look at Saturday's card, for instance, you'll see that one of the promoters on the list is Jake Paul himself. In a recent interview, Paul opened up about his foray into the fight promotions business and said, "The perception has changed immensely, and rightfully so. When I came into this, I had a lot to prove. People didn't understand me. They didn't understand my movement. They thought I was just making a mockery of the sport, and now people really see what I'm doing. They respect me. They respect my work. They respect the business side of it." To see just how well Paul is doing on the promotion side of things, we looked at the recent Amanda Serrano fight between Serrano and Miriam Gutierrez by unanimous decision. Serrano was listed on Paul's Most Valuable Promotions roster, and she has been a standout fighter for years. In a post-fight interview, Serrano discussed her most recent fight purse and said, "The price that was offered before was nowhere what we're getting now. Jake Paul definitely helped that." Next year, Serrano is slated to fight Katie Taylor in what is rumored to be the biggest event in women's boxing history. That could even see Serrano earn a 7-figure payday. Next up, why has Jake Paul become so successful, and what's his secret sauce? Let's take a look. It appears as though Jake Paul has tapped into a very special niche in the pay-per-view market, and that is why he is one of the biggest draws in the world. He made a habit of fighting so-called non-boxers, and the recent Woodley KO is only going to increase his hype even further. What many don't realize is that Paul is also a big advocate for fighter wages and is leading the charge in the new trend that is now being called novelty boxing, which sees athletes from MMA face off against boxing champs, athletes from non-combat sports, and even celebrities. Woodley himself recently commented on Paul's efforts and had this to say, "Without fighters, there's no effing show." I think maybe that started some different thought processes in these guys to recognize how valuable we are and really start to see our value. If that's what it's doing, then kudos to him. Finally, is novelty boxing the future? Considering that novelty bouts are absolutely massive cash draws that bring in billions of dollars in pay-per-view revenue annually, many boxing insiders are predicting that cash cow novelty fights are going to grow in terms of both popularity and frequency. No matter what the haters of novelty fights might think, there's no denying the fact that they are essentially a license to print money. And that's a wrap for today's video, fight fans. Be sure to hit us with a hard like and uppercut that subscribe button. Otherwise, you'll miss out on a ton of awesome videos we've got coming your way.